before we dive deep into this forbidden knowledge, I need to ask you something important. What time is it where you are right now? And where exactly are you watching this from? I'm asking because the time and place you're experiencing this message right now is not a coincidence. You see, your deceased loved ones, they've been trying to guide you to this exact moment, to this exact information, and the fact that you're here, right now, reading these words, means you're ready to receive what they've been desperately trying to tell you. And trust me when I say this, what you're about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about death, about separation, and about the invisible threads that still connect you to those who've crossed over. You've probably been told that when someone dies, they're gone. That death is the yendi, the final curtain, the absolute separation between you and the people you love. But what if I told you that's the biggest, most devastating lie you've ever been told? What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, your grandmother who passed away 5 years ago is standing right beside you, desperately trying to get your attention? What if your father who died when you were young has been orchestrating synchronicities in your life, placing signs and symbols in your path, trying to show you he never left? What if your best friend who took their own life has been whispering messages in your dreams, attempting to tell you they're okay, they're healed, they're free? The truth is, death doesn't exist the way you've been taught. Death is nothing more than a transition, a shifting of consciousness from one frequency to another, and the souls of your loved ones haven't gone anywhere. They've simply moved beyond the veil, beyond the limited spectrum of physical reality that your 5 senses can perceive. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. That veil is paper thin, it's translucent, it's permeable, and with the right knowledge, the right techniques, the right state of consciousness, you can pierce through it and make contact with those you've lost. You can receive their messages, feel their presence, and maintain a living, breathing relationship with them even though their physical bodies are gone. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds like fantasy, like wishful thinking, like something desperate people tell themselves to cope with grief. But stay with me here, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just spiritual philosophy or religious belief. It's based on ancient wisdom that's been practiced for thousands of years across every culture on this planet. From the Tibetan death rituals described in the Bardo Thodol to the Egyptian practices of communicating with the deceased through dream temples. From the Mexican Day of the Dead traditions that honor the ongoing relationship with ancestors, to the Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime teachings that explain how the living and the dead exist in parallel dimensions. Every ancient civilization understood something that modern Western society has completely forgotten. They understood that consciousness doesn't die, that the soul is eternal, and that the boundary between the living and the dead is not a wall but a doorway. And here's where it gets really interesting. Quantum physics is now confirming what the mystics have known all along. Scientists studying consciousness and quantum entanglement are discovering that when 2 particles become entangled, they remain connected forever regardless of the distance separating them. They influence each other instantaneously across space and time. And the same principle applies to human consciousness. When you love someone deeply, when you form those powerful emotional and spiritual bonds, you become entangled with them at the quantum level. Your consciousness becomes interconnected with theirs, and that connection doesn't break just because one of you sheds their physical body. The entanglement persists. The connection remains. And this is why you can still feel your deceased loved ones, why you sense their presence in certain moments, why you have dreams where they visit you and it feels more real than waking life. But here's where most people get stuck. They receive these signs, they feel these presences, they have these dreams, and then they dismiss them. They tell themselves it's just their imagination, just coincidence, just their grief playing tricks on their mind. And this is exactly what the controlling systems of this world want you to believe. Because if you truly understood that death is an illusion, if you truly grasped that consciousness is eternal and interconnected, if you truly realized that you have the power to communicate across dimensions, then you would no longer be controlled by fear. You would no longer be manipulated by the materialist paradigm that tells you this physical life is all there is. You would no longer waste your precious energy chasing meaningless material pursuits, because you'd understand the eternal nature of your existence. You'd understand that this life is just one chapter in an infinite book, one scene in an eternal play, and the religious and scientific establishments have both worked to keep you from this truth. Religion tells you that only they can mediate between you and the spiritual realm, that you need priests and rituals and institutions to connect with the divine or with your deceased loved ones, while materialist science tells you that consciousness is just a byproduct of brain chemistry, that when the brain dies, consciousness disappears like a candle being blown out. And both of these narratives are designed to keep you small, to keep you powerless, to keep you from accessing your own innate ability to traverse dimensions and communicate with souls beyond the veil. So let me share with you exactly what's happening right now in the invisible realms around you. Your deceased loved ones exist in what's called the astral plane, or what Tibetan Buddhism calls the Bardo realms, or what Christianity calls the spirit world. Different traditions use different names, but they're all describing the same reality, a dimension of existence that interpenetrates with physical reality, but vibrates at a higher frequency. Imagine it like radio waves. You can't see radio waves with your physical eyes, but they're passing through your body right now, carrying information, music, voices, data. And you can access those radio waves by tuning your receiver to the right frequency. The astral plane works the same way. It's here now, overlapping with physical reality, and your deceased loved ones are there, existing in a form that's real but non-physical. They still have consciousness, they still have personality, they still have love for you, but they no longer have dense physical bodies. They exist as light bodies, as energy bodies, as consciousness itself. And here's the beautiful part. They're not stuck in some distant heaven or hell. They're right here. They're often closer to you than when they were alive. They can be with you in your home. They can observe your life. They can feel your emotions. They can hear your thoughts, especially your thoughts about them. And they're constantly trying to reach out to you, trying to let you know they're okay, trying to guide you, protect you, support you from the other side. Now the question becomes, if they're so close, if they're trying so hard to reach us, why don't we perceive them more clearly? Why does it feel like we're separated by an impossible gulf? And the answer lies in understanding frequency and vibration. Everything in the universe is vibration. Your physical body vibrates at a certain frequency. Your thoughts vibrate at a frequency. Your emotions vibrate at frequencies, and different states of consciousness vibrate at different frequencies. When you're stressed, anxious, caught up in the drama of daily life, consumed by fear or anger or worry, you're vibrating at a lower frequency, and at that lower frequency, you cannot perceive the higher dimensions where your loved ones exist. It's like trying to hear a dog whistle. The sound is there, it's real, but your ears aren't tuned to that frequency, so you can't hear it. But when you raise your vibration through meditation, through prayer, through states of love and peace and joy, through certain altered states of consciousness, you begin to match the frequency of the astral plane. You begin to tune your receiver to the channel where your loved ones are broadcasting. And suddenly the veil becomes thin. Suddenly you can sense them, feel them, receive their messages. And this is why so many people report feeling the presence of deceased loved ones during meditation, or in that twilight state between sleep and waking, or during moments of deep emotional release, or when they're in nature feeling peaceful and connected. These are all states where your vibration rises and you naturally attune to higher dimensions. But there's another factor that most people don't understand, and this is crucial. Your deceased loved ones are also learning, evolving, and adjusting to their new reality. You see, when someone dies, especially if it's sudden or unexpected, there's a period of confusion and adjustment. Imagine waking up from a dream, and for a few moments you're not sure what's real. You're disoriented. You're trying to figure out where you are and what happened. Dying is similar. The soul leaves the body and suddenly finds itself in a completely different reality. And depending on their beliefs, their spiritual development, their attachments to physical life, this transition can take different amounts of time. Some souls transition smoothly and quickly recognize they've died and move into the higher astral planes where they can communicate more easily. Other souls remain confused, attached to their earthly life, not fully accepting or understanding that they've died. These souls often linger close to the physical plane, trying to interact with the living, but struggling to make contact because they haven't yet learned how to communicate from their new state of being. This is what's described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead as the different stages of the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. And according to Tibetan teachings, it can take up to 49 days for a soul to fully transition and recognize their new reality. Though for more evolved souls it happens much faster, sometimes instantly. And here's something absolutely fascinating that the ancient Egyptians understood deeply. They knew that the living have a responsibility to help the dead in their transition. This is why they performed elaborate funeral rites, why they recited texts like the Book of Coming Forth by Day, which we call the Book of the Dead. They understood that prayers, rituals, and focused intention from the living can actually help the deceased soul navigate the afterlife realms. They can provide light, guidance, and energy to help the soul orient itself and move toward higher planes of existence. And this isn't just ancient superstition. This is profound truth, because consciousness responds to consciousness. When you think about your deceased loved ones with love, when you pray for them, when you send them light and peace, they receive that energy, they feel that love. It literally helps them on their journey. And conversely, when you're stuck in intense grief, when you're desperately clinging to them, when you're refusing to accept their death, that energy can actually make their transition more difficult. It can keep them tied to the earthly plane because they feel your pain and they want to comfort you. They want to let you know they're okay. But your grief is like chains holding them close to a reality they need to release from. This doesn't mean you shouldn't grieve. Grief is natural and necessary, but it means your grief should eventually transform into love, into gratitude, into blessing them on their journey while maintaining connection. So let's talk about the signs. How are your deceased loved ones trying to reach you? What are the specific ways they're attempting to break through the veil and make contact? First and most commonly, through your dreams. And I cannot emphasize this enough, dreams are not just random neurological noise. Dreams are not just your subconscious processing the day's events. Dreams are a portal to other dimensions. When you dream, your consciousness literally leaves your physical body and travels through the astral plane. This is why in dreams you can fly. You can be in impossible places. You can experience realities that defy physical laws. Because in dreams you're not in physical reality. You're in the astral dimension, the same dimension where your deceased loved ones exist. And this is why dream visitations from the deceased feel so different from regular dreams. You know the ones I'm talking about. Those dreams where you see your deceased grandmother and she's radiant, She's glowing with light. She's younger and healthier than when she died. She speaks to you with such clarity and love. She tells you specific things. And when you wake up, you know without a doubt that it wasn't just a dream. It was a visitation. It was real contact. And you're absolutely right. Those dreams are different because they're not dreams at all. They're actual meetings in the astral plane. Your loved one has intentionally connected with you while you're in the dream state because that's when you're most accessible. That's when your conscious mind isn't blocking and filtering and dismissing. That's when you're naturally vibrating at the frequency where you can perceive them clearly. And here's how you can tell the difference between a regular dream about someone you've lost and an actual visitation dream. In a visitation dream, your loved one appears clear and lucid. They often look healthier or younger than when they died. They communicate with purpose. They might give you specific information or messages. They radiate love and peace. The dream has a different quality to it. It feels more vivid, more real, more stable than regular dreams. And most importantly, when you wake up, you have a feeling of peace, of completion, of having truly been with them. Whereas regular dreams about deceased loved ones often reflect your processing of grief, your memories, your fears, and they tend to feel more confused, more emotional, more fragmented. So start paying attention to your dreams. Keep a dream journal by your bed. And when you wake up from any dream involving a deceased loved one, immediately write down every detail you can remember, because these are messages. These are actual communications. And the more you honor them, the more you acknowledge them, the more your loved ones will use this channel to reach you. But dreams aren't the only way they're trying to connect. They also use synchronicides, and this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Your deceased loved ones can influence physical reality in subtle ways. They can't just materialize in front of you or speak to you in clear, audible voices, because that would require them to densify their energy to an impossible degree. But they can work with probability. They can nudge circumstances. They can create meaningful coincidences that serve as messages. Have you ever been thinking about your deceased father, and suddenly his favorite song comes on the radio? Have you ever been struggling with a decision and found a dime or a penny in an unusual place? And you remembered that your deceased mother used to say pennies from heaven? Have you ever seen repeated number sequences like 1111 or 333 or 444 during times when you're thinking about someone who's passed? Have you ever encountered a specific animal repeatedly, like a cardinal or a butterfly or a dragonfly, and felt in your heart it was connected to your loved one? These are not coincidences. These are orchestrated signs. Your loved ones on the other side are working with the quantum field of probability. They're collapsing wave functions in ways that create these meaningful synchronicities. And the more you acknowledge these signs, the more you say out loud or in your mind, "Thank you, I see you, I receive this message," the more signs you'll receive, because you're essentially confirming the communication channel is open. Then there's the phenomenon of sensing their presence. And you know what I'm talking about. Those moments when you suddenly feel like you're not alone even though you're physically alone. When you feel a warmth, a tingling, a sense of love surrounding you. When you smell a scent associated with your deceased loved one, like their perfume or cologne, or the smell of their pipe tobacco, or their favorite flowers. When you feel someone sit down on the bed next to you even though no one's there. When you feel someone touch your shoulder or stroke your hair. These are real experiences. You're not imagining them. You're not going crazy. What's happening is your loved one is actually there with you in their astral body. They're projecting their presence, and you're sensitive enough in that moment to perceive it. Usually this happens when you're in a relaxed state, when your analytical mind is quiet, when you're feeling emotional or vulnerable, because in those states your psychic senses are naturally more open. Children and animals are particularly sensitive to these presences because they haven't yet been conditioned to dismiss them. This is why young children will often talk about seeing dead relatives or describe invisible friends that turn out to be deceased family members they never met in physical life. And pets will often stare at seemingly empty spaces, or bark or meow at nothing, or suddenly act excited when there's no apparent cause. They're perceiving the astral, bodies of deceased humans who are visiting. Now let me share with you the exact methods for intentionally opening communication with your deceased loved ones. Because up until now I've been describing how they reach out to you, but you also have the power to reach out to them. You have the ability to initiate contact, to create a bridge between dimensions, to establish a clear and ongoing connection. And the first and most powerful method is through meditation. Specifically a practice I'm going to teach you that's based on ancient Tibetan and Egyptian techniques adapted for modern practitioners. You need to create a sacred space and a sacred time for this practice. Choose a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. This could be a corner of your bedroom, a space in nature, anywhere that feels peaceful and safe. You might want to create a small altar with photos of your deceased loved one, objects that belong to them, candles, crystals, flowers, anything that helps you feel connected to them. Then sit comfortably and begin by closing your eyes and taking deep, slow breaths. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this for several minutes until you feel your body relaxing and your mind quieting. As you breathe, visualize roots growing from the base of your spine down into the earth, grounding you, anchoring you in your physical body. This is important because you're about to expand your consciousness and you need to remain grounded and protected. Once you feel grounded and relaxed, begin to focus on your heart center. Place your hand over your heart and visualize a beautiful green or pink light glowing there. This is your heart chakra, your center of love, and love is the key to interdimensional communication. Love is the highest vibration. Love is what connects souls across all dimensions. So breathe into your heart center and think about your deceased loved one. Remember how much you love them. Remember specific moments of joy you shared. Remember their laugh, their smile, their unique energy. And as you do this, feel that love growing stronger and brighter in your heart. Visualize it as a light that's expanding, growing brighter and brighter until it fills your entire chest, then your entire body, then radiating out beyond your body. And here's the crucial part. Use your intention to direct that light like a beam, like a searchlight, out beyond physical reality, beyond the veil, into the astral plane, and call to your loved one. Speak to them in your mind or out loud. Say their name. Say, "I love you. I'm here. I'm open to receiving you. Please come close. Please help me feel your presence." And then, wait in stillness and receptivity. Don't force anything. Don't try too hard. Just remain open and aware, and pay attention to what arises. You might feel a shift in the energy around you. You might feel suddenly emotional. You might feel warmth or tingling. You might see colors or images in your mind's eye. You might hear words or thoughts that don't feel like your own thoughts. You might just have a sudden knowing that they're there. All of these are valid forms of contact, and the more you practice this, the stronger and clearer the connection becomes. I recommend doing this practice for at least 15 to 20 minutes, and doing it regularly, not just once, but making it an ongoing practice, because you're literally building a bridge between dimensions, and that bridge gets stronger with repeated use. Another powerful method is automatic writing, and this is a technique that's been used by mediums and mystics for centuries. The way it works is you enter a light meditative state. You invoke the presence of your deceased loved one, and then you take a pen and paper or sit at a keyboard, and you allow words to flow through you without conscious thought. You essentially get your analytical mind out of the way and allow your hand to write or type whatever comes through. And what happens is your loved one can impress thoughts and messages onto your consciousness, which then flow through you onto the page. Now this takes practice and trust. At first you might think, I'm just making this up. These are just my own thoughts. But over time you'll notice that the writing has a different tone, different vocabulary, information you didn't consciously know. And this is how you know it's genuine contact. The key is to not judge or censor what comes through. Just write, let it flow, and evaluate it afterward. I recommend starting each session by writing something like, "Dear name, I'm opening my heart and mind to receive any messages you have for me. Please communicate through me now." And then just start writing whatever comes, even if it seems random or nonsensical at first. Sometimes the first few minutes are your own thoughts clearing out, and then suddenly you'll feel a shift and the real messages start coming through. And these messages might be comforting words. They might be guidance about your life. They might be explanations about what they're experiencing in the afterlife. They might be apologies or expressions of love they didn't get to say before they died. And receiving these messages can be profoundly healing. It can provide closure. It can transform grief into peace. There's also a technique called chair work, which is used in therapy, but has powerful applications for spirit communication. You set up 2 chairs facing each other. You sit in one chair and you imagine your deceased loved one sitting in the other chair. And then you talk to them. You speak out loud as if they're really there. You tell them everything you need to say. You ask them questions. You express your grief, your love, your anger if you have anger, whatever you need to communicate. And then you physically switch chairs. You sit in their chair. You imagine yourself as them, and you allow them to speak through you. You answer your own questions from their perspective. And this might sound strange, but what's actually happening is you're temporarily channeling their consciousness. You're allowing their energy to merge with yours. And the words that come out are often surprising. They're often things you didn't consciously think. They're often exactly what you needed to hear. This technique works because consciousness is not limited by physical location. Your loved one's consciousness can actually blend with yours. They can speak through you. And by sitting in their chair, you're symbolically and energetically creating space for that to happen. Now I need to talk about grief and how it affects communication, because this is something most people don't understand. Deep, heavy, unprocessed grief actually blocks communication with deceased loved ones. And this creates a painful paradox, because the people who most desperately want to connect are often the people whose grief is making connection impossible. Here's why. Grief, especially in its early stages, vibrates at a very low frequency. It's heavy, it's dense, it's contracted, and remember what I said earlier about frequency and vibration. Your deceased loved ones exist at a higher frequency. So when you're vibrating in the density of grief, there's a frequency mismatch. It's like trying to make a phone call when the signal keeps dropping. The connection can't stabilize. Additionally, intense grief often comes with a lot of mental noise, a lot of obsessive thinking, a lot of desperation and grasping, and that mental noise makes it impossible to perceive the subtle signals your loved ones are sending. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a hurricane. The message might be there, but you can't perceive it through all the chaos. So here's what needs to happen. You need to allow yourself to grieve. You need to feel the pain, process the emotions, cry the tears. This is necessary and healthy, but at some point, and everyone's timeline is different, You need to begin transforming that grief into love, into gratitude for the time you had together, into acceptance of the reality that their physical form is gone but their consciousness is eternal. And as you make this shift, as your vibration begins to rise, suddenly the connection becomes clear. Suddenly you can feel them, hear them, receive their signs, and ironically, once you can connect with them and know they're not really gone, that they're still with you in spirit, the grief becomes so much easier to bear. Let me share something that's going to sound controversial, but it's absolutely true based on ancient wisdom traditions. Your deceased loved ones are often more available to you, more present with you, more aware of you than they were when they were alive. When someone is in a physical body, they're limited by physical constraints. They can only be in one place at a time. They're distracted by their own thoughts and concerns and physical needs. They might live far away from you. You might only see them occasionally. But once they shed the physical body and exist as pure consciousness in the astral plane, they're freed from these limitations. They can be with you instantly just by thinking of you. They can observe your life without the filters and distractions of physical existence. They can feel your emotions directly. They often become like guardian angels or spirit guides for their living loved ones. This is a gift of death that no one talks about. Death doesn't end relationships. It transforms them. It removes the limitations and complications of physical existence and allows for a pure soul-to-soul connection. And many people who've developed strong communication with their deceased loved ones report that their relationship is actually deeper and more meaningful than it was when the person was alive. Now let's talk about timing, because this is crucial. There are certain times when the veil between worlds is naturally thinner and communication becomes easier. The ancient Celts knew this. This is why they celebrated Samhain on October 31st, what we now call Halloween. They understood that the veil is thinnest during this time. But there are also personal times when the veil is thin for you specifically. The anniversary of your loved one's death is a powerful time. Their birthday is a powerful time, significant dates you shared together, holidays you celebrated together. These times carry emotional energy that creates openings in the veil. Also, the time between 3 and 4 a.m. is known as the witching hour, or the hour of the wolf. This is when the veil is naturally thinnest. This is why many people wake up during this hour feeling a presence or experiencing spiritual phenomena. If you wake up during this time, don't be afraid. Understand that this is a gift. This is an opportunity for connection. You can use this time to meditate, to pray, to invite communication with your loved ones. Additionally, the moon cycles affect the veil. The full moon and the new moon are particularly powerful times for spirit communication. And if you want to go even deeper, there are specific astrological transits that open these doors wider. But you don't need to become an astrology expert. Just pay attention to when you naturally feel more open, more sensitive, more aware of subtle energies, and honor those times by creating space for connection. There's also something I need to address about fear, because many people are afraid of communicating with the dead. They've been programmed by horror movies and religious conditioning to believe that contacting spirits is dangerous, that it invites demons or negative entities, that it's spiritually forbidden. And I want to be clear about this. If you approach spirit communication with love, with pure intentions, with respect, if you're specifically calling to your own deceased loved ones, if you protect yourself energetically, there is nothing to fear. The truth is that your loved ones who've passed on want nothing but good for you. They love you. They want to help you. They want you to know they're okay. The fear-mongering around spirit communication is a control mechanism designed to keep you separated from your own spiritual power. Now that said, it is important to protect yourself energetically when doing any kind of interdimensional work. And the way you do this is simple. Before any meditation or communication attempt, visualize yourself surrounded by white or golden light. Call upon your highest spiritual guidance, whether that's Source, God, your higher self, your spirit guides, whatever resonates with you. State your intention clearly that you're only open to communication with name or with beings of the highest light and love, and trust that this protection is real and effective. You can also wear or carry protective stones like black tourmaline, obsidian, or hematite. You can burn sage or palo santo to clear the energy of your space. These are all tools that have been used for thousands of years because they work. They create an energetic boundary that ensures only loving energies can come through. Now here's something absolutely crucial that most people never consider. Your deceased loved ones are not static. They're not frozen in time. They continue to grow and evolve in the afterlife. They're learning, healing, expanding their consciousness, resolving karmic patterns, preparing for their next incarnation, or moving into higher and higher dimensions of existence. The Tibetan teachings explain this beautifully through the Bardo Thodol, which describes the journey of consciousness after death. Immediately after death, the soul enters what's called the Chikai Bardo, where they experience the clear light of reality. This is pure consciousness, the fundamental nature of mind. If they can recognize and merge with this light, they achieve instant liberation. They don't need to reincarnate, but most souls don't recognize it because they're not prepared. They're too identified with ego and personality. So they move into the Koniad Bardo, where they experience visions, projections of their own consciousness. Both peaceful and wrathful deities appear. But these are not external beings. They're aspects of their own mind manifesting. If they can recognize this, if they can understand that everything they're experiencing is their own consciousness, they can still achieve liberation. But again, most souls don't recognize this. So they move into the Sidpa Bardo, where they prepare for rebirth, where they're drawn to their next incarnation based on their karma, their attachments, their unresolved patterns. Now this whole process traditionally takes 49 days according to Tibetan Buddhism, but the actual time can vary greatly depending on the individual soul's evolution and attachment. Some souls move through quickly, some linger in the Bardo states for years or even centuries in human time. Though time in the astral plane doesn't work the same as physical time. And here's what this means for your communication with deceased loved ones. In the early days and weeks after their death, they may still be close to the physical plane, still processing their death, still trying to communicate with loved ones, still attached to their earthly life. This is actually the easiest time to sense their presence, to feel them around you, to receive signs, because they haven't yet moved into the higher Bardo states. They're still vibrationally close to physical reality, but as time passes, as they heal and evolve and move into higher dimensions, they become harder to perceive from the physical plane. Not because they love you any less, not because they've forgotten you, but because they're vibrating at an increasingly higher frequency. They're less identified with their earthly personality and more merged with their eternal soul essence. However, they can still communicate with you, they can still visit you, but it requires you to raise your vibration higher to meet them where they are. This is why spiritual practice becomes so important. The more you meditate, the more you develop your consciousness, the more you heal your own karma and raise your frequency, the easier it becomes to maintain connection with loved ones who've evolved into higher dimensions. And here's the beautiful thing. When you do connect with them after they've been gone for some time, after they've healed and evolved, they often have profound wisdom to share. They can see your life from a higher perspective. They can offer guidance that they never could have offered when they were in physical form, limited by their own wounds and unconscious patterns. Let me tell you about something called soul contracts, because this will help you understand the deeper meaning of your relationships with deceased loved ones. Before you incarnate into physical form, while you're still in the spirit realm, you make agreements with other souls. These are sacred contracts where you agree to play certain roles in each other's lives. You agree to help each other learn specific lessons, to balance karma, to catalyze each other's growth. Sometimes these contracts include agreements about when and how the relationship will end. Believe it or not, some souls actually agree at the soul level about the timing and manner of their death, because it serves a higher purpose in the spiritual evolution of everyone involved. Now, this doesn't mean that all death is predestined or that people want to die. The physical personality usually doesn't consciously know about these soul agreements. But at the deepest level, at the soul level, there's a knowing, there's a plan. And when someone dies, especially when they die young or suddenly or in tragic circumstances, there's usually a soul contract involved. There's a deeper reason, a higher purpose that may not be visible from the limited human perspective. And understanding this can bring tremendous peace. It can help you make sense of losses that seem senseless. It can help you trust that there's a divine order to things even when everything feels chaotic and wrong. And here's something beautiful about soul contracts. Death doesn't end the contract, it transforms it. You contracted to be in relationship with this soul, to love them, to learn from them, to grow together. And that contract continues beyond death. They continue to support your growth from the other side. They continue to love you, guide you, send you signs and messages. They've simply changed roles. They've gone from being your physical mother or father or spouse or friend to being your spiritual guide, your ancestor, your guardian. And in many ways, this is a more powerful form of support because they're no longer limited by human wounds and unconscious patterns. They can access higher wisdom. They can see the bigger picture of your life's purpose. They can intervene in subtle ways to guide you toward your highest path. And recognizing this, honoring this, maintaining conscious relationship with your deceased loved ones. This is actually part of your spiritual path. It's part of your evolution, because learning to perceive beyond the physical, learning to trust in invisible realities, learning to communicate across dimensions, these are all capacities that you're meant to develop as you awaken spiritually. Now I want to share with you a secret that the ancient Egyptian priesthood understood deeply, a truth that was encoded in their entire civilization. The living and the dead are in partnership. They need each other. The living can help the dead by performing rituals, by sending prayers and love, by releasing them from attachment and blessing them on their journey, by living well and honoring their memory. And the dead can help the living by offering guidance, protection, wisdom from the other side, by interceding in the spiritual realms on behalf of their loved ones, by sending signs and synchronicities, by visiting in dreams. This is why ancestor veneration is such a powerful practice in so many cultures. It's not just about honoring the memory of the dead. It's about maintaining an active relationship, a reciprocal exchange of support and love across dimensions. And you can begin this practice right now. You can create a simple ancestor altar in your home with photos and objects representing your deceased loved ones. You can light candles for them, offer them food or drink symbolically, speak to them regularly, ask for their guidance and protection, thank them for the signs they send, tell them about your life, share your joys and struggles with them. And what you'll find is that this practice is deeply nourishing for your soul. It helps you